Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you again for your time and for joining us for this month's webinar. I have a wonderful guest, Emily Chung, and she's going to walk through communication and how you should be intentional about that. But before we get started, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. We are recording today's session. You will receive it tomorrow. But mindful that this one, you will need to watch it quickly because we will only be sharing it for a little bit of time and we will let you know in the email. If you miss that time, of course, you can reach out to Emily and she will be grateful to share more details with you. We do want to make this as interactive as possible. You know, we host these for you and for you to get insights into your business on how to grow it and be a better owner, technician, service advisor, whomever we have on the phone. We want to grow you guys individually and the business at the same time. So please make sure to engage with us. So the chat function down below, you will see it. We are going to ask you to put some emojis in. And while I finish going over the chat, why don't you guys go ahead and tell us where you're tuning in from today? Would love to know where you're coming from because we do span all over Canada and the US. Also, last thing, we will have some poll questions. Would love to have you guys engaged in that. It does help kind of progress the presentation forward and gives us an insight into how you guys are doing the certain features that we're talking about. And then lastly, there is a survey that goes out immediately following the webinar. Simple things like how is the webinar content? We run these monthly and we run the content solely based on what you guys are telling us you want to hear. So please do fill that survey out and you will get a $20 Amazon gift card sent to you. And so Emily, without further ado, look at all of these people coming in. I love the engagement.
I know.
California.
I know, I feel like some of you guys are like in much warmer climates than I am. Okay, so and you can see my screen, right? Just checking in on that one. Okay, excellent.
We can see it.
All right. Okay, so welcome to the communication webinar. I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit about myself, about my shop, and then move right into the communication piece because there's definitely a lot to cover in this time that I have with you. I've got about an hour. Is that right, Amber? Okay. All right. So I am a licensed service technician as well. I have a repair shop up in Markham, Ontario, Canada. So just a little north compared to some of you guys there. And we are an independent repair shop, just like what you would think it might be. This is my second location in the sense that I moved here a few years ago from a first location. So I don't have two locations, I have just the one. This one is about 4,400 square feet. It is 5 bays. I've got a couple of hoist-free spaces where we can do engine work, and we've also got a complimentary car wash service with every invoice. So we do have one as a wash bay too. We have an EV charging station in one of them as well. I wanted to share with you guys a little bit about my area because I think a lot of times people don't really understand the craziness that I'm in. This is a map of where I'm at. So you can see me down here. AutoNiche is here. Now I'm in a building of, I think, 8 other shops. And each building that you see around me has multiple shops. So in this immediate vicinity, in this 2-kilometer, 3-kilometer radius, there is probably about 100 repair shops easily. So again, this is my unit here, and there's multiple of us in here, and every single building that you see has multiple units. So for example, this white long building here, it's actually cut up rectangularly. So there's multiple repair shops in there. Now, most of the times it is mechanical repair. We do have some that are like glass places and maybe body work. But for the most part, we are all mechanical. So this is where I used to be, my first location, and this building was 14 units. So we were one of 14, and I was 3 bays, 5 parking spots. Every single bay door that you see is another repair shop. So we would literally have people come by who would say, okay, they would drive back, to the bay door and say, how much for a starter, or how much for an alternator, and then drive to the next bay door, how much for an alternator, on and on you go. In the center doorway here, it's a common corridor, and you could walk down and the labor rates would just start dropping the further down you go. So again, this is one building, 14 units, next building over had another 10 units, next building over, had another 8 units. So easily in this immediate vicinity, I have about 100 of these, repair shops. And so it's always interesting to me because from very early on, I had to have a different mindset about what competition meant. And I do, share this just to give you some sense of what my space is like. And I am very envious of those of you who have one building, unlimited parking spots on your lot. It's something that I've never experienced. Aside from having the shop, I'm also an automotive writer. I write for the public in terms of car safety tips and maintenance. I also write for our industry too in different trade publications. And I also do car reviews. I'll take a vehicle from a manufacturer, drive it for a week, road test it, publish it online, and then pick up another vehicle from the manufacturer. I also teach at a local college, at Georgian College. We have the automotive business school there, so I am a professor there as well. I'm also a proud ambassador with Kick-Ass Careers. We talk to students in elementary and high school to promote entering the skilled trades. I'm also the VP of ARO, which is the aftermarket association for us in Ontario. And so for those of you who are in Ontario, I strongly recommend that you check out the organization. And I'm also right now pursuing my master's. I'm also a full-time single mom to 2 teenage boys. And I think that that one is probably where I need most prayer for. It's probably my most challenging job. But I do share this with you to just let you know this is a little bit about who I am, and that hopefully you can see sort of where all my experience comes in when I start speaking to you about communication. Prior to getting into the trades, I was a psychometrist. I actually graduated from the University of Waterloo with a psychology and business degree. I was a psychometrist, and I think a lot of you guys have probably heard of psychiatrists, psychologists. Psychometrists are the ones that administer the testing. So I would have one client or one patient with me 5 hours at a time, and I would test them on their intelligence, their aptitude, pain inventory, their neuroticism, their depression. And I would then, write my report, make my recommendations. And I was also human resources associate at a pharmaceutical company. So in there, I also had time to build the experience that I have now in terms of communication. So that's a little bit about me. And I'm going to take you guys into thinking a little bit about how we communicate with each other. So Amber, our first poll is coming up. I wanted to ask you guys, how long does it take to make a first impression?
Are you able to see the responses yet, Emily?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you can. Great.
Yeah, I can.
And I will launch it in just a second. So get
Okay.
your responses in. 75% of the audience says a few seconds.
Okay. And then, so here's the thing. So do I just click stop sharing here?
I'll stop sharing. Yep.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, so you guys are right. It takes only a couple of seconds for somebody to make an impression. So there's lots of studies that have been, done on this, okay? And it's just a couple seconds, like literally that is enough time for you to say, hi, good morning, Amber, how are you? That's it, done. And so, we decide if we believe someone, if we like someone, if we trust them before we even have heard them speak, right? So that's how quickly somebody makes a first impression. Van Edwards is another author who says that, the power of our first impression lies not in what we say, but in how we say it. And I think that, I use scripts at my shop all the time for training and all that stuff, right? And really and truly, if you use scripts, remember that scripts is really just the wording of what you're saying, but how it's delivered is something totally different. So again, it's not what we say, but it is how we deliver the message. What percentage of communication is nonverbal? It's another poll.
All right, we've got this up. Responses are coming in. I have no idea what this one is, so I'm excited to see what everybody says. All right, and I'm going to end poll and share those results.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, you guys obviously are thinking that nonverbal communication is key. The actual percentage that they have taken out of the studies is, let me just stop share here. Oh, there we go, thank you. Is about 80 to 90%. So what I want to get out of this slide with you guys is that 80 to 90% of your communication is non-verbal. That means when you and I are talking, that you are getting some sort of other communications cues, whether it's my body posture, my body language, my intonation, everything, my facial expressions, my hands waving, not waving, like all of that is actually contributing way more to how you perceive my communication than just the actual verbal, words that I'm saying to you. And this is really key because remember, as service advisors, right, we talk a lot on the phone. Now we have literally brought that 80-90% of nonverbal communication down to solely on the phone. Really and truly, now what we say and how we say it, the way how we say it, everything like that, that is the only mechanism of communication for the clients. And this is no different than even when you're on a Zoom call, right? Like if I'm off video and you're really just listening to me, now 100% is being relied upon how I say something, what I say. And it's really important to keep this in mind when we're talking to our clients. You know, they don't have the benefit of seeing us, of picking up that 80-90% of the other cues. So the question is, you know, how do we build rapport quickly with them? Because really, you don't have a lot of time with your clients. You have maybe the pickup, the drop off. You have the presentation of an inspection, the finding results, and then you have, you know, closing out the invoice. We don't have a ton of time with them to build this communication. So if you have any questions, definitely pop it in chat. I'm going to move into now the bulk of what I'm presenting to you today. So one thing is, you know, I wonder how many of us are really intentional about how we speak. And I love this quote from Brendan Manning. He is an author, and he says, in every encounter, we either give life or we drain it. There is no neutral exchange. And this happens even at the coffee shop when I'm grabbing, you know, coffee from somebody. When I say thank you, I'm either going to build into their experience or I'm taking from them. And there is a lot of power in our words. If you've ever had like a great day, you get out of bed, it's a great day, sun is shining, right? Everything's going right. Have you ever had the experience where somebody says one thing to you and then for the rest of the day, you're done? Like you're just constantly replaying what they said. Oh, this is how I should have responded. This is like, what do they mean? Blah, blah, blah. Like it just tanks you for the whole day. That's how powerful our words are to each other. And the opposite is true. If you've ever had a day where things are not going right, you know, and you've had a really difficult time, you know, if that person who comes by you and says something to encourage you really can change, you know, how you think about the rest of your day. So our power has our words have power, sorry. Okay, I think this is probably another, this is another poll. This is a question for you guys. So please let me know in chat what you think. On average, let's start with the men first, in terms of for how many words you think the average man speaks. So in any given day, on average, how many words? I know, any 5. That's awesome. John, love it. Okay, how many words on average does the average male speak in a day?
There's a lot more men on this phone.
I know.
I think they're giving us their answer on here without saying it.
1,000, 10,000, 100,000. Okay, too many.
Too many.
Love it. Yes. Okay. All right, like a lot of varied responses. Okay. So I'm going to tell you guys that men on average in the studies, right, that they've done, they speak an average of 7,000 words a day. Okay. So men are on average 7,000 words a day. Now, ladies, knowing that men speak 7,000 words a day, how many words on average do you think the female speaks in a day? 15,000. Yep, 20, infinity, 3 times more. Very good. You guys are very good. That's awesome. Okay. So we're at about a 3-to-1 ratio. So David, you're bang on. And this kind of makes sense, right? I have 2 teenage boys at home. I'm like, you know, how are you? And they say, hey, right? How was school? Great. What'd you do? Stuff, you know? So this 3-to-1 ratio at my house is definitely true. And again, keep in mind, these are averages, right? So you're going to have some women that speak less. Certainly, I personally am closer to 7,000 than 20,000. So I'll be like done my word count by 3:15 today. And you're going to have some guys who, like, honestly, I just can't get them to stop talking, right? So you will have people that are sort of in one extreme or the other. So keep in mind, these are averages. Now, knowing this, I'll tell you what, when I got into the trades, I understood that I was going into a world that was primarily dominated by men. So I was very intentional in trade school, in the workplace, to cut my words down. I mean, already naturally I speak 7,000, so there wasn't such a huge jump for me. But when I first experienced somebody else, I would be very conscious and very intentional to pare my words down. If I happen to meet a guy who spoke a lot more, then guess what? It's my responsibility to bring my word count up so that I can speak to them in the way that they would receive my message well. Okay, I hope this is making sense to you guys. This is very similar to somebody who's like introverted or extroverted. So if you're introverted, you like spending time on your own. If you're extroverted, you get recharged by other being in places where there's other people around you. Now, naturally, I'm very introverted. I jokingly say I hate people, but anyways, I'm very introverted. And so when I have somebody extroverted come to me though, right? An extroverted person, you can spot them a mile away. They're like just like super like energetic and they're just bubbly is what I call it, right? Now, if I'm introverted and I have an extroverted person come to me, it's it it kind of like I need to take a step back almost, right? Because like I just need a bit of space. And when we start communicating, you know, if we don't communicate in the same way, sometimes the extroverted person thinks, oh, like, am I miscommunicating? Is she not understanding me? Did I say something wrong? She's so quiet. You know, why is she so quiet? And then meanwhile, I'm like, wow, this person's talking like a ton, right? So we have more opportunity for miscommunication when we don't speak in each other's language. And for me, the question really is, you know, can you adjust your communication style? Now, I believe everybody can adjust your communication style. If you have ever seen grown people talk to babies and puppies, you will know exactly what I mean. I have a dog. He is now, this is when I first got him, but he's now, you know, 15 months old, 16 months old. And well, do any of you guys have babies and puppies? I want to know, like, if you do, put something in the chat for me, emojis or something. But in my home with this puppy, so his name is Colson, and you know, when I talk to my puppy, it's so just, you know, I sound like this. Hi, Num Num, how are you doing? Oh my goodness, what a good dog. You're such a good boy. Okay, go get it. Yes, you know, come over here. Yeah, good job. Hey, you know, like all of a sudden I'm way more animated. I'm way more expressive, right? And same thing for a baby. When I see a baby, like, oh my goodness, like look at those like sweet eyes. They're so cute. You're so fat. Can I just come and squish you? Right? Like, you know, and the reason please, somebody else tell me if you do this. But anyways, the reason why I do this and why we all do this is because we have zero expectation of these babies and puppies coming up to our way of speaking. If I want to build rapport with this baby or puppy, I'm going to need to go down to their level of communication, right? And I think that as we get on in age, that we just forget about being intentional in speaking, you know, in somebody else's style. And, you know, a lot of times in the sales stuff, we talk a lot about, you know, what we're going to say, how we're going to present it, that kind of thing, but we don't necessarily think about how they're going to receive it best. And you guys have heard the same before, right? There's 1,000 ways to communicate a message. So, you know, anybody, I believe, can really learn to adjust the communication style. I think first and foremost, it takes being intentional about it. So I'm going to talk to you guys about the DISC quadrant. Now, my background is in psychology. I've, you know, studied DISC previously, and I have just applied it to what we do at the shop. So you may be interested to know that at our shop, we code all of our clients. So Amber, if you were a client of mine at my shop, in your profile, you know, have your name, address, phone number, and then I would have your code in terms of what I think your personality style is. And that way, my service advisor can know, okay, how to speak with you, and anybody else jumping onto your file will know how to speak with you too. So if I happen to be taking over for my advisor, I'll know right away, okay, I need to jump into this quadrant. Now, there's many different types of, you know, psych assessments out there. I like to use the DISC because it's easy to code people and it's relatively straightforward. So there are 4 different styles, and that's why it's DISC, right? D-I-S-C. So you have a dominant. These people are typically known to be determined. They're direct. They're results oriented. You probably know some people in your life who are like this. I'm definitely in the dominant quadrant. Influence are people who are enthusiastic. They're outgoing. They have, you know, ideas. They're kind of like, you know, larger than life people. Their ideas are like pie in the sky kind of thing. Steadiness are people who are patient, they're supportive, they're accepting, they're loving, nurturing, you know, those kind of qualities and characteristics that you see in them. And compliance are people who usually work in accounting, to be honest. They are analytical, they are fact-based, they're very detailed. They are the ones where you're trying to price out tires and they're asking you like all sorts of technical details about these tires. And literally in my head, I'm like, it's black and round, like honestly. Okay, so for these disc profiles, we at the shop call them differently. And these, again, these profiles are common, like it's out there, it's been researched on. So it's nothing new I'm presenting to you at all. It's just how we use it at our shop. So dominant person is called a controller. So in my file, it'd be CO. Influence is a promoter, steadiness is a supporter, compliance is an analyst. So I'm going to walk you through how to code as well. And just keep in mind, we're going to be talking about controllers, promoters, supporters, and analysts. So first question is, are you people-oriented or task-oriented? Pick one or the other and just put a pin on where you might be. And the second question is, do you like to be in charge or do you have more of a laid back attitude? And then I'm going to show you the graph of where we can plot these quadrants. So are you people or task oriented? And do you like to be in charge or have you got more of a laid back attitude? Okay, so.
I like that they're answering in the chat. That's great.
Yeah. Task and in charge. Okay, so here's what you're going to do on a piece of paper or wherever, on your digital stuff, do this quadrant. And Shelby, if you're both, that is a very common thing, like for people to express that they're both or that they're kind of, it depends is another type of answer I'll get. So what I want to ask you is naturally, your first go-to, first answer is your best answer. What would you naturally say that you sit in? Okay, so if you're going to be, David, you're the last one that answered. Let's say you're task-oriented and in charge, then you're going to be in the top left corner. So you will be over here, right? Because you're higher on the task and you're more dominant. So you're going to be in this corner. Laid back. I'm told that you're C-roll. Okay, that's awesome, John. So if you are people laid back, John, you're going to be down here and relaxed. You're going to be on this side. Go ahead and plot your quadrants, and then I will then, I think the next one is then where you're at. Now, keep in mind, so here's the deal, right? I naturally sit in the dominant task quadrant. I'm naturally a controller. At the same time, though, I can sometimes be a supporter. I can sometimes be an analyst. Like you can be in multiple quadrants. It's just which one do you naturally go to? Which one are you most comfortable with? And I'll explain a little bit more about us floating around as well. So Amber, if you have that poll up, if you could put that up as well.
You should see that. So which quadrant are you based on what we just discussed?
Yeah, I saw a few promoters in the chat. If you're not sure of which quadrant you're in, let me know, put it in the chat. Or you can just wait and let us flesh out a few more things and then figure out what you might be.
I'm going to give it a few more minutes. We've got about 30. There we go. It's ticking up. No analysts. I guess that's makes sense. No? How many analysts do you see in this industry?
No analysts. You know what? My service advisor is naturally an analyst and it drives me crazy. Sorry, whoever just answered analyst.
That's just because you have to go in that quadrant to speak to them, right? All right, we're going to share the results. Let me see. All right, a lot of controllers, which would make sense to me.
My people.
Yeah.
Okay. And we've got a few promoters. Yeah, I saw that in the chat and a few supporters. Okay. Yeah. Now there are certain, you stopped sharing. Okay. Now there are certain quadrants that naturally fit towards certain people, right? So my technicians will naturally be an analyst. They can be in any other quadrant as well. I'm just talking like on average, right? Again, on average, most technicians will sit in the analyst side. Most service advisors will sit in the supporter promoter side. Okay, and so, it's not to say that if, again, my advisor, I love him, he's great, he's fantastic, he sits as an analyst. Doesn't mean he's not a good service advisor, it just means that knowing that he's an analyst, he gets to work on jumping into others' quadrants. Okay, all right, so brief overview. Controllers typically are known for liking organization. They have goals. They're usually like, seen as leaders. They have a get it done attitude. They dislike tardiness and poor leadership. So Amber, I'm so thankful you started this call right at 2:00.
You're so welcome. I am OCD about time, although I don't usually sit in the controller. That is one
Nope.
tab.
Okay. The analysts are usually people who like structure, they like organization, they also like their alone time, they dislike rude and obnoxious people, they dislike disorganization too. Supporters, they love travel, they love children, community, and they don't like bossy people, they don't like conflict. These are people who want to be in harmony, right? They don't like negativity. Promoters, you guys love vacations, sex, and parties. Wherever the fun is, this is where my promoters are at, okay? They just like work rules and negative people. John, you don't like drama, right? Yes, we don't, nobody likes drama, I hope. Personality types, okay, right? I'm like, damn, I need some more promoters in my life is what I need. Okay, controllers, they want to be right. Analysts typically want to have the facts. Supporters, they typically want harmony. And promoters, they want to be recognized. So knowing that these are general things of what these quadrants need and want, we can now present to them the same inspection report, just in different ways. So I'm going to walk you through an inspection report at the end of our call too, and just show you how it might look differently in different quadrants. So here's the deal, right? How do we code people? Now think about how many times you interact with a customer. So even at the greeting, even when they're booking an appointment or they're telling you their symptom or concern, or you're asking them if they need a shuttle ride, you're going to get different types of people answering differently depending on what quadrant they're in. So for example, if I was a controller and I'm booking an appointment, I might be, hey, have you got June 16th at 2:00, or I could do anytime on June 14th, this and this, right? Typically, that's how a controller would speak. If you have somebody who is a promoter, when you pick up the phone, hey, Emily at AutoNiche, they might be like, hey, Emily, how's it going? How's it been? Blah, blah, blah. Like they all of a sudden bring up a ton of energy level. Somebody who books an appointment that's on the analyst side, they will literally talk to you about their schedule, and they'll say, like they'll just get into detail. I've had clients that are like, oh, well, from 8 to 9 o'clock, I got to go here. And then from 9 to 10, so, I won't be able to be back. And I don't know, you guys probably have some of these people too, calling into your stores, right? Asking for the appointment, and literally you're there, like just listening to the whole calendar go. Supporters, same thing. They might start talking about, well, I got to bring my kids to, this place and that place. And so you start to kind of get a sense for which quadrant they're in, okay? A general sense of which quadrant they're in. Now, we like this particular quadrant because, again, we can quickly code them. Again, do they seem more task oriented? Are they like literally, hey, I got a check engine light on, do you have an appointment tomorrow? Right? Or are they more people oriented? Are they more direct? Are they relaxed? The deal is that you can change this quadrant anytime. So even if you misdiagnose somebody, let's say they legit were on a rush, booking the appointment time with you, and then when they come in, they appear as like, a supporter, completely opposite. That's fine. Then code them differently. There's nothing to say that they've got to stay in this particular quadrant. And the other thing to keep in mind is, I told you before, I naturally sit in controller, right? But guess what? If that day I happen to win the lottery, you bet 100% I'm going to be in promoter, right? If I, had a sudden, I don't know, loss in the family or something like that, I'm probably going to sit more in the supporter side. So just because I naturally sit in one quadrant, when you experience me that day, that moment, I might be in a different quadrant. And so your advisor or we as owners, right, we get to figure out which quadrant this person is in at that moment and go with them there. That is really, I think, the test of a true communicator. Can you switch up into these different quadrants? Yeah, absolutely. Sky, the 100%, like you can be in different quadrants. And I think who is that person who said that they were a steamroller? John. So, it might be that, right, in some situations you are that way. I think oftentimes people are surprised when, like, especially my suppliers, because I'm the kind of person where if you give me a contract, I'm reading every single thing because I want to know what I am signing to. Now, again, like that's me popping into ANALYST, right? And so I'm not saying that we are only one. I'm just saying that we get to be jumping into the different quadrants depending on the need. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. Can you adjust? We got to be in the same quadrant as our customer. And a great communicator is really somebody who knows how to dance, right? Can you pop in and out? You pick up one phone call, you got a supporter. The next phone call maybe is going to be a controller, right? On and on we go. The in terms of the quadrant, what I do want to say is this, is that the quadrant diagonally opposite to you is going to be the one that is most challenging for you. So as a controller, my supporter quadrant is the most challenging for me, right? Because naturally, I just want to be like, let's get it done, let's get going, right? And the supporter is like, wants harmony, wants to like check in and make sure, are you okay? Like, how's it going? Blah, 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 right? So it's not good or bad. It's just different. You know, an analyst is somebody who wants all the facts. And so their challenge is going to be on the promoter side, the one that's diagonally opposite. So think even just about who your team is. Think about who you're working with, right? And I mean, like I said, my advisor is an analyst. One of my technicians is also an analyst and he's part controller. My other technician is a promoter, you know, and it's not good or bad. It's just who they are. And guess what? If I want to communicate with them, it's my opportunity to go into their quadrant. And honestly, I'll tell you this, my advisor knows this whole quadrant thing and whatever. So he understands if he wants to get my attention on something, because, you know, I have a bazillion emails like right in front of me all the time. And he knows if he wants to come in to, you know, whatever, ask me something or whatever, he knows that he's got to get like straight to the point. He's got to tell me the straight point first. And then if he wants to do analyst with me, maybe after. But if he wants to get my attention, it's like, okay, I just authorized like $10,000 on this thing. 100% you're going to get my attention, right? Not ham, like, so I was thinking this, and this is why I went with this, you know, they said they would offer this kind of warranty, blah, 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 and I spent 10,000. Like that doesn't work with me, right? So I understand I'm giving you guys some really extreme examples, but I want to be able to make the case in, you know, 60 minutes or less. Okay. So we want to be able to understand their style. Now think about your client's style and it'll benefit you in terms of how you communicate with them. When you present to them their inspection report, when you present to them the estimate, think about your coworkers, your family, your friends. You know, in the end, good communication is not just about customer service, right? When I think about my kids, I have one kid who is an analyst and I have another kid who is a supporter. Now, my supporter kid, he used to be a promoter. So, you know, even he kind of shifted and I'm controller. So guess what? When I'm trying to talk to my kids about doing homework, my analyst one, it is about, okay, what homework have you got? When is it due? How much time are you spending on this one? You know, do you think that's enough time? Like, how are we budgeting for this? I'm going into his side of things, right? If I was talking to another controller kid, I'd just be like just get it done. just get it done. My supporter kid, actually, when he was a promoter, when he was younger, I would have to sell him on the fun, right? Of finishing the homework and you get the fun after, right? Whereas my analyst kid, I mean, he wasn't thinking about the fun part per se. He was just wanting to, you know, get it all done, right? So even with my own kids, I can see how the quadrant is really effective in communicating with them. So I hope that, again, I hope this is making sense to you guys. You even find yourself taking on people's, yeah. You know what, Jake, that is really good because you are speaking in their style, right? And honestly, like, have you ever had, we I don't know, we have clients where when they call, sometimes they sound like Eeyore, right? And they're kind of like lower in energy. They're kind of like just slower talk. They're kind of, you know, they're in that zone. Well, my advisor needs to get down to there too, right? Then the next call, he gets a promoter who's like, hey, Eric, how's it going? How was your summer? Blah, blah, blah. You got any plans for the long weekend? Yeah, I need to bring my car in, blah, blah. Well, Eric's got to bring his energy up there too, right? And to your point, Jake, about matching somebody's speech pattern, matching their energy, right? Being in that quadrant with them. Okay. So we do digital inspections at our shop. This is what we would send to the client. We do have a format, I guess, of how to present these in general. And then within that format, we then talk about, you know, how it would be presented in the different quadrants. So remember that in these quadrants, controller wants to be right. The analyst wants to have the facts. A supporter wants harmony, and a promoter wants to be recognized. So remember, I've got one inspection report. It's the same message. Brakes still need to be done, right? The tires are still good. Doesn't matter which quadrant this person's sitting in. The fact of the inspection report remains the same. The only difference is how we present it to the different quadrants. So let's say, for example, this inspection report is showing that the tires are measuring well. They're at 7 mil. I'm sorry, my American friends, I don't know what that is in 30 seconds. They're 7 mil, just take my word for it, it's great. Tire pressures are adjusted, they were all low. The steering components are tight, they're within spec. Front brakes, they need to be replaced. They're measuring at 3 mil. The rear brakes need a service or just preventive maintenance, right? Lubrication and cleaning everything up. And the brake fluid was replaced last year, so they're not going to need that this time. Okay, so again, let's just say, for example, this is 7:30 seconds. This is what the inspection results were. So I'm going to go through and show you just, generally speaking, how the controller would do it, analyst, and then supporter promoter. So if I was speaking to another controller, right off the hop, I would keep it very tight. I would say, you know what, overall the vehicle's doing well. If they told me that they had brake symptoms when they're coming in, I would say, you know what, you were right. Like we could hear that brake noise happening. The front brakes are getting low. They're measuring at 3 mil. It needs to be done. I took a look at your brake fluid. That's all good to go. You don't need to worry about that. But I would keep my conversation very straight and very direct. All the tire pressures have been adjusted, so you're good to go for your road trip next week. But I would affirm if they brought up any concerns, and I would say, you're right. I heard those. My technician took them out for a road test, and yep, 100%, we heard that it's in the brakes. Okay. If I was speaking to an analyst, now remember, these are the ones that want the details. Okay, so with an analyst, I will go that extra step of saying to them, the tires are measuring well, they're at 7 mil, front brakes need to be replaced, they're at 3 mil. Like I would give them some of the specs. I would even go back and tell them, let's say if the tires are measuring well, I would say, well, last time in your oil change inspection that we did, they were measuring at 8 mil. So it's only been 1 millimeter drop. So it's still really good. And then I would give them the brake mill as well, right? So typically we say replace them at 3 mil. Typically minimum safety is 2 millimeters. It's at 3, so it's time to do them. I would give them more detail because I know that that's what they're looking for. And I've had some of my analyst clients actually, they're looking at their old inspection report as I'm talking to them for the new inspection report. Like that's how analytical some of my clients are in this quadrant. And then again, brake fluid replace after your so I hope you can see the difference in how I would present it from a controller side to now an analyst side. Analyst, I would give them more information, more detailed. I would still keep it relatively direct, but I wouldn't be as, straight to the point with them as I would with a controller. Okay, remember, supporters are our most challenging ones. They want harmony, right? They want to be in peace. They want to be supportive, and they want that nurture and that whatever, that not whatever, they want that love, right? And so I would tell them, hey, Amber, I just got the inspection report, and overall the vehicle is doing really well. Like it's being taken care of for sure. And I know you're headed out for a road trip. And I know you got your family in there. So, we did take a look at the brakes. I definitely heard the concern that you were talking about. I know that the techs reported it to me as well. The brakes are measuring at 3 mil, and the back brakes, they do require service. It is preventative maintenance. So while I'm in the system, we're making the recommendation to get it done. Brake fluid, that's all checked out good. So you know what, you and your family, you're going to be good to go on that road trip. So I hope you can see and hear how the difference, the nuance, right, in me presenting then to a supporter. Now, promoter. First off, when I call a promoter, my energy is way higher, right? Especially compared to a supporter. So when I call the promoter, hey, Amber, how's it going? Did you happen to get our inspection report? Okay, I just wanted to go over it with you. You know what, and remember, they want to be recognized, right? Overall, the vehicle is doing really well. You take really good care of it. Like a lot of these items are really just maintenance and everyday wear and tear, right? Steering suspension components are all tight. They're all within spec. Tires are measuring well, so you're going to be good to go on that road trip that you were talking to me about, and blah, blah, blah. So that's how I present to a promoter. I would affirm what they want, and depending on the quadrants that they have, and I would tailor that, the communication piece that way. Does that make sense to you guys? I only see Amber nodding. So, if you have any question, I do see one from Jake. What kind of nonverbal cues can you use for each group? That's a really good question. Okay, so I'm at the end of my my presentation too. So let me just stop sharing. So nonverbal cues. So the nonverbal cues really only you can get it from in person more, right? Because over the phone, it's difficult to do. But a promoter, you can be sure that when they come in, they are way more energetic. So, oftentimes they will come direct to the counter, right? And what I tend to see with people who are analysts or supporters, they may not come like right direct to you. Um, I think that the other thing I've noticed before is just the mannerism of supporters too. They tend to be just, have you ever met somebody where like without them speaking, like right off the hop, you could tell they were just hospitable. They were just, they just had that sense to put you at ease when you were with them, right? Like, so that's sort of the nonverbal cues that I tend to get too with supporters, at least my supporter clients.
I have a question. How much have you seen? Obviously, you were doing this pre-COVID, and now we're getting into, and how much have you seen the shift of this? I mean, has it been, I mean, obviously masks were a huge shift in this, right? With nonverbal. So have you seen a lot of your customers change quadrants?
If I've seen them change quadrant, I think it would be more of a situational thing.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this, with the even with the mask on, you can tell somebody's body language and you can tell somebody's um, tone, even
Yeah.
with the mask on. So, so a controller typically walks with a certain energy that is different than somebody who is in the supporter mode, right? I mean, think about it. If you're a controller, you are more direct, you're more structured, right? Whereas if
Mhm.
somebody's more laid back, naturally they're going to appear more laid back too. So again, the pandemic definitely changed in terms of how we were communicating with clients, because we relied then more on phone calls and on texts, right? But even on texts, like I have a supporter friend, and oh my gosh, she's like emoji queen, like all sorts of emojis everywhere, right? And promoters like that are like that too. They like to use a lot of different emojis too. So you kind of get little like nuggets and you kind of piece it together. And like I said, if we get it wrong, if we don't code somebody properly right the first time, okay, we code them differently another time, or if I experience somebody in a different quadrant and Eric experiences them in a different quadrant, then okay, we have a chat about it and we figure, okay, you know what? Yeah, no, I think it was more that one. I probably got it wrong. So we'll code them differently in our system.
Yeah, that's great. I know as a
Um,
promoter, I like my exclamations and my emails. I have to watch it. I am very cautious about how many exclamations. I know some of my colleagues are on here today and I use them all the time. So
yeah, I'm like, but stop yelling,
yeah, I'm yelling at you. But yeah,
right?
do we
And
have any more questions? Make sure to get them in. Yes,
and
thank you. The
the other
exclamation.
thing too is that if you think about it, once you're able to really master this well, in the middle of a presentation, I have had to, and Eric as well, right? We have had to switch quadrants in the middle of a presentation. So
Yeah.
so for example, so I also record our calls, right? So we kind of listen to them afterwards, but there was one call we were listening to, and the client, Eric was analyst and getting all analyzey with his inspection report. And the client like is a supporter. And the client was just not engaging, right? He's like going on about the measurements and like, this and that, whatever, like getting analytical. And the client's just like, yep, and then in the middle of it, not in the middle of it, but he then shifted, like it was a definite shift in how he communicated with her into the supportive quadrant. And he left and then there was no more talk about like how many millimeters, how many whatever for the rest of the conversation. And it was great. So I think we don't get it perfect either. I think it's just, can we switch, quicker and faster? Can we be more intentional, more aware of this? That's what we do at our shop.
And you mentioned it earlier, but I just wanted it to repeat, for people who are thinking about doing this or something like this in their shops, you leave this on each customer's account so that anyone, whether it's front of the house or back of the house, can go in and see that at any point.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yep.
it's in their contact profile. And
Yep.
so I think, yeah, that's been the biggest thing for us. I don't know a lot of shops that actually code their clients as intentionally as we do. And yeah, Jake, watch for the eyes glazing. Yes, exactly. You're in the wrong quadrant. You got to go back and figure out which one they are.
That's great.
So yeah, that's just something that we've been using. And yeah, I hope it does help you guys.
What about travel and speaking engagement classes? I
Yes,
know you do that, so
I
I'll let
do.
you.
Yes. I mean, I do. Yeah, I do speak with lots of different groups in terms of communication piece, like this whole, how many words do men speak and women speak and all this stuff. Like I do present that a lot because I think we just forget about that, right? We talk to each other as in our comfort zone. I mean, it's so easy for me to speak in a controller style and not remember that, hey, like maybe this person isn't in the same quadrant as me. And so, yeah, I do speak as well uh, to different corporations as well as different schools about to their students about entering skilled trades and entrepreneurship and other customer related things. Customers always give us like a whole whack of things to talk about, right?
Yeah. If they wanted to, so obviously I mentioned prior, the recording will go out for a short period of time. So if they will
Yeah.
get that access tomorrow.
Yeah.
Other ways, Carmen Capriato, you've done a few podcasts with him,
Mhm.
and those are still live so that they can find that. Any
Yeah.
other places you would like them? Obviously,
Yeah.
AutoNiche.
They can email me. And honestly, if you guys want to go through an inspection report like together, I'm totally game for that. Like, let me know. So yeah, I'm more than happy to kind of flesh this out with you guys a little bit more. And it takes practice. It really takes practice. I think first and foremost, what with my advisors, when I bring them on board, I get them to code themselves. And then I ask them to do this with their kids, with their spouse, with their who have friends, family, and just kind of play with this and see how it works,
Question. So obviously we're in a digital age now, right? So a lot of shop management systems or whatever you're using to communicate with your customers that are digitally, right? Do you change that message based on the quadrant, or do you leave them kind of generic, depending on the communication,
It depends on what type of communication. So we have automated
right?
messages. So
Right.
those ones are all going to be the same. If I am speaking with a client specifically about their car, their vehicle, that kind of thing, then yes, I will change it. With a controller, I will be very like, I literally will just do bullet points sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, I do change it when I can, where it makes sense.
Yeah. That's great.
The other thing too is with my advisor, for him to know what quadrants my techs are in is really helpful too, because, think of how many times the advisor and the techs talk to each other.
Mm,
Now, I will be very honest with you, and if some of you guys are on the call are technicians, like me personally, I don't expect technicians to necessarily do so much, work in the communication piece because they're just not usually naturally wired that way. They're technical people. They love their cars, that kind of thing. The advisor, though, I do put a lot of responsibility on them to communicate well with the team. And so when Eric is cautious and conscious and intentional about talking to my lead tech, who's a controller, right? Who's an analyst, and get right to the point, that kind of thing, versus the promoter technician. Like I think it helps him in terms of his relationships with them too.
mm. So when you have a new employee, do they take the actual disc test, or is it more just based on they do? Okay. Or
Mhm.
is it based on their personality?
So I'll have them do the disc as well. Like, so, sorry, I will code them this way. There's a couple of other, because of my background in psychometry,
Mhm.
there's a couple of other questionnaires that I have them do just so I can have a fuller profile, so to speak.
Mm.
And I have a whole like psychiatric like file
Yeah,
folder
I mean,
for
my
everybody.
background's in psychology, so you and I on this phone is like
Yeah.
great.
And so I will, but very quickly, even in the interview process, right? I can code them quickly, right? And so it's interesting to me, just to be able to use this in any kind of situation, really.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know. John said owner 37 years, 90% fleets vehicles. I'm not sure what that was in relation
Reference to.
to. Yeah.
So yeah, I would be interested to hear from you guys if you're going to try this out in the next week or two. And just, I think as I start talking about the different quadrants, I think some of you could already right away see people in your life who are definitely, in a certain quadrant, right? And the thing is, if you're in the quadrant and you're closer to the middle, then yeah, you might have a bit of a blend of of the different quadrants. But at the end of the day, we all naturally sit on future dates. Oh my God.
What is
That is awesome. Yes.
that's great.
See, it can apply for anything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Well, if we don't have any other questions, I really appreciate your time, Emily. And I would love to get you back on. I know we talked about this, but responding to Google reviews and how to do so intentionally. Let's use that word. And how important it is. So as I mentioned, everybody, the recording will go out. You can reach out to Emily. Her email is in the chat function. There will be a quick survey the moment I end this that will pop up. You will also get it. Oh, I love that. I will get it to you tomorrow in the recording email. So make sure you do it. You'll get a $20 Amazon gift card. Emily, great praise coming in. I love to see that. So I appreciate your time. Awesome. Okay. Well, you guys have a wonderful Thursday and we'll be back next month. Bye.